Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and the very first episode of my series where I dive deep into the entire Newjeans drama, every twist, turn, and explosive headline. This ongoing controversy has become one of the most talked about stories in K-pop history, and at the heart of it is a fierce power struggle involving Min Hee-jin, the former CEO of Adore, and the entertainment giant Hybe. The battle? It's all about who gets control over Newjeans, a group that have risen to become one of the most iconic and influential girl groups of their time. But this drama isn't just about corporate clashes. It's become a full-blown media spectacle. From accusations of plagiarism that risk damaging the reputations of Hybe's artists, to internal conflicts that have sparked outrage and speculation, the situation has spiraled into something much bigger than anyone anticipated. The media frenzy surrounding it has been relentless, and because so much has happened over such a long period of time, a lot of people have started to feel lost in all the chaos. As a result, false information has been spreading online like wildfire, with some reports even being completely fabricated, only adding fuel to the fire and driving fans and netizens absolutely wild. That's exactly why I created this series, to break it all down in a way that actually makes sense. I'll be explaining everything in order, step by step, from the tiniest details that got overlooked to the massive controversies that shook the K-pop industry. This isn't just a quick recap. I'll be unpacking how we got here, going all the way back to the very first whispers of conflict that surfaced on April 22nd, 2024. That's right, this drama didn't appear overnight. It's been brewing for over a year, and it's only gotten messier with time. What makes this situation even more confusing is how quickly unverified theories began to spread. Some people took speculation as fact, and as the actual truth started to emerge, it only added more confusion to an already complicated narrative. And that's something I want to be clear about from the very beginning. A lot of what's involved in this controversy comes from different reports, some from companies, others from individuals. So whenever I bring up a claim or statement that's based on a report, I'll make sure to let you know, so you're not misled or tricked into thinking something is confirmed when it's not. So buckle up, because the story of Newjeans, Min Hee-jin, and Hybe is filled with shocking moments, behind-the-scenes tension, and a lot of unanswered questions. And in this series, we're going to go through it all. Let's get started. To truly make sense of everything that's been happening, we first need to start at the very beginning, by understanding the companies involved, how they're connected, and how the structure behind all of this actually works. Without this foundation, it's easy to get lost in the chaos later on. So let's break it down. Hybe is a massive entertainment powerhouse in South Korea, one of the biggest in the industry. And it doesn't just operate on its own, it's what's known as a parent company, meaning it owns and oversees multiple smaller subsidiary companies under its umbrella. One of those companies is Adore, the agency behind Newjeans. Now here's where things get important. Hybe owns around 80% of the total shares in Adore. That number might sound abstract, but it's actually a pretty big deal. Let me simplify it for you. Many companies sell what's called stock, or shares. When someone buys those shares, they essentially own a portion of that company. The more shares you have, the more say you get in what happens inside that company. You get voting power, influence, and in many cases, control. So when Hybe owns around 80% of Adore's shares, that means they own the vast majority of the company and legally have the power to make major decisions for it. On top of that, Hybe reportedly invested 16.1 billion won, which is about 11.7 million US dollars, just to help establish Adore in the first place. So if there's ever been any confusion about whether Hybe owns Adore, the answer is simple: yes, overwhelmingly so. There's no denying their ownership and influence. Now let's talk about Min Hee-jin. At the time, she was the CEO of Adore and widely celebrated as the creative mastermind behind Newjeans, from their unique concept and visuals to their music and overall image. Many fans credited her vision as the driving force behind the group's identity. But on April 22nd, 2024, everything began to change, and that date would go on to become one of the major turning points in this entire drama. On that day, reports began to surface claiming that Hybe had formally requested Min Hee-jin step down from her role as CEO of Adore. This wasn't just a rumor spreading on social media. It was reported by MTN, a credible news outlet in South Korea. According to their report at the time, Hybe wanted her to resign so they could better exercise their rights as the largest shareholders of Adore. In other words, Hybe felt like they weren't able to fully control the company they legally owned the majority of, and they were now stepping in to change. Not long after, Hybe reportedly called for a shareholders meeting, a formal process where major stakeholders in the company gathered to make decisions. This moment marked the beginning of a much bigger storm that would unravel publicly in the weeks and months to follow. What started as a reported corporate dispute would soon become a full-scale controversy with ripple effects across the K-pop industry. The report at the time covered almost almost everything that had gone down between Hybe and Min Hee-jin, but one critical detail remained unconfirmed: whether Hybe's reported request for Min Hee-jin to step down was actually carried out. You see, for that kind of major decision to take effect, Ador's board of directors would also have to sign off on it. And during this period, the board wasn't just composed of random executives. Alongside Min Hee-jin, there were two other internal directors working with her at Ador who had long-standing professional ties to her. In fact, these two individuals had even worked with Min Hee-jin back when they were all at SM Entertainment before making the transition to Ador. As time passed, and not much time mind you, speculation began to rise. Allegedly, if Hybe's request for Min Hee-jin to step down had been denied by the board, this situation would likely push Hybe to pursue legal action. After all, Hybe was trying to exercise its rights as the largest shareholder, owning about 80% of Ador. But if Ador resisted and refused to comply, legal intervention would be the next logical step. And in that scenario, if the court sided with Hybe, then the company would be granted the authority to elect its own directors to Ador's board, essentially giving Hybe more direct control over the company they already owned the majority of. Well, things escalated fast. Min Hee-jin reportedly did reject Hybe's request to step down, a move that triggered a major fallout between her and Hybe. This all unfolded on the very same day, just hours after the initial request, setting off a chain reaction. That same day, April 22, 2024, Hybe addressed the situation publicly through a report released on Exports News. And the developments didn't stop there. Hybe had also reportedly launched an audit on both Min Hee-jin and Ador's board of directors, those same executives who were closely tied to her. In response to the growing controversy, Hybe stated, "It is true that we have invoked our right to auditing Ador executives." That statement came out only a few hours after the reported request for Min Hee-jin's resignation, fueling even more speculation and concern from the public and media alike. But here's where things got even more confusing for fans and netizens online. At first, it seemed like Hybe was trying to forcibly push Min Hee-jin out of the company she helped build. That's how a lot of people interpreted the news. But looking deeper into the reports and facts from that time, it's important to note that Hybe didn't actually have the authority to fire her outright. They could only request that she step down as CEO, using their legal rights as the majority shareholder. However, as more details began to surface, it became clear that Hybe's reasoning went beyond just exercising shareholder rights. According to multiple reports, during the fallout, it was revealed that Min Hee-jin had allegedly been attempting to leave Hybe entirely, but with Ador still under her control. If that had happened, Hybe would have been forced to sell nearly all of its 80% stake in Ador, essentially losing control over a company it created, funded, and built from the ground up. That's not a small matter. It's huge. At that point in time, Newjeans was at their absolute peak, chart-topping, headline-grabbing, and pulling in major revenue not only for Ador, but also for Hybe. Selling Ador, a label with one of the most successful girl groups of that era, would have been seen as an impossible move. From a business standpoint, it made zero sense. And the fact that all of this unfolded over just a few hours on a single day left fans, investors, and netizens completely stunned. Reactions online exploded almost instantly. The report sparked heated debates, and many netizens were quick to take sides. Some were outraged at Min Hee-jin, accusing her of allegedly trying to steal Ador and its artists from Hybe, the very company that had invested so much money and trust into her. Others, however, felt differently, that asking Min Hee-jin to step down, especially after she had played such a major role in creating Newjeans, was far too harsh and undeserved. Comment sections on articles were flooded with mixed responses, including quotes like, "Wow, the 50-50 situation isn't even that long ago. This is basically the same incident but without the members being involved. Newjeans wouldn't be affected by Min Hee-jin leaving. LOL. Wow, that is a bit harsh. This is scary AF. Does she think she is the sole reason for Newjeans' success? I think 80% of Newjeans' success is due to Hybe's investments and being introduced as Hybe's girl group." Clearly, netizens were divided, and in the middle of all this, people started noticing something else. Hybe's stock value had taken a noticeable dive. This meant that investors who held Hybe stock were suddenly losing money because the value of the shares dropped significantly. The drama wasn't just causing waves in the K-pop world, it was hitting wallets too. And if that wasn't enough, the situation took an even more dramatic turn online, where comparisons to K-dramas started popping up. Some netizens began comparing Min Hee-jin to a villain from the hit drama Queen of Tears, a character who tries to steal a powerful family's fortune. People saw the parallels, saying that Min Hee-jin was allegedly trying to do something similar, stealing Ador, which many viewed as part of Hybe's carefully built entertainment empire. Honestly, I don't even remember all of this happening in just one day, but it turns out that on the very same day, everything started going down between Hybe and Min Hee-jin. A wave of detailed and serious allegations were revealed that shook everything even more. Now earlier, we talked about how Min Hee-jin was allegedly trying to take Ador with her if she were to leave Hybe, basically trying to separate the sublabel from the parent company altogether. But in response to all of that, Hybe came forward and stated that they had launched a formal audit against Min Hee-jin. Just to be clear, everything I'm about to break down was reported on April 22nd, 2024. So what exactly did Hybe claim in this audit? Well, according to Korean news outlets, Hybe's audit contained accusations against Min Hee-jin that included some pretty heavy stuff. Things like information leakage, inappropriate external consulting, leakage of artists' personal information, and personnel irregularities. These are not small claims. The audit wasn't just aimed at Min Hee-jin either. It was sent to her as well as to Ador's two deputy CEOs, who in the documents were referred to as A and B to protect their privacy. Now the core goal of this audit wasn't necessarily to accuse just yet, but to ask questions and verify what Hybe referred to as conspiracies, essentially to confirm whether or not there really had been an organized attempt to take over the management rights of Ador from within. Also, don't forget, at this time, Hybe held 80% of the company, while Min Hee-jin only owned 20%, so any kind of takeover attempt would have been a massive power move. While going through this audit process, Hybe claimed they uncovered what they called circumstantial evidence. And just to clarify for anyone who might be confused, circumstantial evidence doesn't directly prove a fact, but it points toward a logical conclusion that the fact might be true. It's basically connecting the dots based on what surrounds a situation. And according to what Hybe found, the internal management at Ador, meaning Min Hee-jin along with the two deputy CEOs, A and B, had allegedly been receiving consulting from outside of Hybe and outside of Ador regarding how to manage the company. This consulting wasn't just basic advice either. It was, according to Hybe, connected to their attempt to take over Ador's management rights. And what's even crazier is that this plan, according to the audit, had been in motion since the beginning of 2024. The audit goes even further, detailing that Min Hee-jin, along with deputy CEOs A and B, had constructed a strategy with their outside consultants. The goal? To get Hybe to sell its 80% stake in Ador. And it wasn't just any investors they were hoping would buy. It was investors who had already been allegedly persuaded or won over by Ador's internal management. In simpler terms, Hybe was accusing them of insider trading. And if that sounds confusing, don't worry, I'll break it down. Insider trading is basically when someone buys or sells stocks using confidential information that hasn't been made public yet. For example, if someone working at a company knows that the company is about to release bad news and quickly sells their shares before the stock price crashes, that's insider trading. It's illegal because it gives certain people an unfair advantage over regular investors who don't have access to that kind of secret information. In South Korea, insider trading is a serious offense and can lead to up to 20 years in prison or fines up to 3 to 5 times the amount of profit earned from the illegal activity. So back to the audit, Hybe alleged that Min Hee-jin and the two deputy CEOs were involved in this kind of illegal planning. The goal, Hybe claims, was to harm Hybe's reputation in the public eye. If public trust in Hybe dropped and the company's stock value fell, Hybe would be pressured to sell their shares in Ador, and those shares could then allegedly be picked up by investors already aligned with Ador's leadership. To pull this off, Hybe said the team behind Ador tried to manipulate public opinion to make Hybe look like they were overstepping or treating Ador unfairly. And during the planning stages of all this, it was also reported that Min Hee-jin and the deputy CEOs leaked sensitive information to various third parties, including foreign investment advisors, private equity firms, securities analysts, and multiple consultants. The leaked information allegedly included signed contracts between Hybe and Ador. The audit also reported that the group had allegedly mapped out ways to hurt Hybe's image and even discredit its artists, something that could seriously damage public perception and investor confidence. And on top of that, it was reported that at this same time, Min Hee-jin and the other executives had already started discussing things with the parents of Newjeans members. Now, the audit didn't say what those conversations were about exactly, but many people believe they could have been related to terminating the contracts of the Newjeans members. But that's a whole other topic we'll dig into later. At this point in the timeline, Newjeans was still officially working under Ador. Now, here's where things get even deeper. The audit highlights Deputy CEO A specifically, saying he played a key role in the entire plan. Apparently, A had only recently moved from Hybe to Ador, and in that transition, he brought with him a significant amount of Hybe's internal information, basically trade secrets, and allegedly used that confidential knowledge to help build the strategy to take over Ador's management. These trade secrets included financial data, contractual details, and more. But wait, it doesn't stop there. The audit claimed that not only were they leaking business info, but also private artist data. That included photos and media of trainees before their debut, and even personal health information. And on top of that, the audit accused Ador's management of hiring certain staff members based on requests from outside third parties, which raised even more red flags about the level of external influence going on. So yeah, this audit was not light stuff. These were serious accusations, and while the full details weren't revealed publicly since nothing had been officially confirmed at the time, the allegations alone were enough to cause a huge stir. Later on, it was reported by Korean media outlets that Hybe only learned about all of these issues after receiving a tip-off, meaning someone from the inside or close to the situation had told Hybe about what was going on. That tip was apparently what led Hybe to issue the audit in the first place, to find out whether the tip-off was legit or not. And just to remind you again, this all happened while Min Hee-jin and Newjeans were still under Ador in April 2024. As news of the audit broke, netizens went wild. People online were shocked by how detailed the accusations were. Between the alleged public opinion manipulation, insider trading attempts, suspicious discussions with Newjeans' parents, and even the leaking of private data, it was all too much to ignore. That's it for the first episode of my series, Entire Newjana Drama Explained. This series is going to be longer than expected, so stay tuned for the future episodes or K-pop updates and commentary. See you in the next video. Bye for now.
Like in the future.